Well, Ted, welcome to Virginia Legends. As you know, I've been talking to many of the legendary players of Northern Virginia over the last couple of years, and dying to start talking to some of our UVA brethren, also the DC area. So thanks for agreeing to talk to me.
Yeah, I don't know how I made the cut. You know what I mean? I don't classify myself as a legend, but I appreciate you putting me on the show. You've been doing a great job with the show. I've been checking you out. A lot of great legends getting a chance to talk to. So keep up the good work, man. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thanks, Ted. You're definitely a legend. I did a little research in preparation for this. Okay. I didn't realize you started, maybe you're in the top 5 in the history of UVA in terms of games started. Is that still the case?
I believe so. It's funny. I was just talking to my my co-captain, Doug Smith, and I know you wanted to try to get both of us on. We can still do that. But yeah, he said he had an incredible stat that Doug Dowdy, the beat writer for UVA, talked about. The most games played without ever starting a game was Doug. And I think I have the most games started and not missing a game, something like that. So I never missed a game at UVA. And the only 2 games that I did not start were senior day, my first and second year at UVA.
Wow. Well, and this is something we'll get to, but you probably have the record for least games started for a Division I player who averaged as many points and rebounds as you did. Because in high school, you played behind Jerrod Mustaf.
Right.
Oh yeah, okay. Maybe I got that wrong. You probably have the record for the least number of high school games started for a player that scored too many points and got too many rebounds at the college level.
Right. So it's funny. I talk about it all the time to have gone through my senior year at DeMatha, playing for the great Morgan Wootten, playing behind the great Jerrod Mustaf, you know, and not starting as a senior, but ending up with a full ride to UVA. And when you look at that graduating class, I would probably argue that the best scholarship out of that, you know, group of seniors, and we had 11 that got D1 scholarships.
11?
Yeah, 11 seniors got D1 scholarships. I would say UVA was the best school out of that choice. Yeah. So, you know, consider myself fortunate.
Nowadays, that would have never happened. In this day and age, parents would have transferred their kids a long time ago. If they weren't starting by their sophomore year and they had Division I ability, they would have gone somewhere else.
Yeah, and there was some talk about that, you know, from my side. But as far as my parents were concerned, it was a moot point. You know, it's like, yeah, okay, I hear you. You've articulated your argument very well done, crafted, all of that. But no, you're going to be at DeMatha, and this is where you're going to graduate from. So, you know, I wanted to try to do something where I could showcase my talent. I would be the guy that, you know, people leaned on. Right. But, you know, fortunately for me, they talked me into going to Fort Union Military Academy, where I did get a chance to showcase and highlight my talents and be one of the guys that the team counted on regularly to be a starter.
Exactly. Well, as everyone knows, basketball fans know, DeMatha was coached by Morgan Wootten. Many think he's the greatest high school coach in the history of the game, one of the greatest coaches in the history of the game. But it's also a private school. So where would you have gone to school if not for DeMatha?
I would have started my freshman year at Eleanor Roosevelt.
Also a good program.
Good program. They developed into a good program when Glenn Ferrello, who was now at Paula VI, was over there. And he might have come after I graduated from high school. But and then we moved my freshman year out to Bowie, and I would have gone to Bowie High School at the time.
Right. Were your parents athletes?
Dad played ball growing up in Deanwood. Actually, was on the same team at Spingarn High School with Dave Bing.
Is that right?
Yeah, played high school ball with Dave Bing. And then he played in the service, played overseas, Europe, you know, just traveled around with the military army basketball team.
Was he tall?
Dad, 6'3". He was about 6'3". He passed away about, it's been about 15 years now, but let my cousins and family talk about it. You know, his nickname was Uncle Goose because he was also always so wild and silly on the court, always trying new tricks, doing things. And, you know, you can probably have a whole show with my cousin Adrian Branch, who played at Maryland, about some of the stylistic plays my dad would do out on the basketball court. My mom played when she was younger, and this is before women could cross half court, the taller players. So she had a small stint probably growing up in, middle school and then a little bit in high school, but that was about the extent of that.
Right. When did you start getting serious about basketball? So nowadays, and you have a son who's an athlete. Nowadays, kids get serious very early. When did you start getting serious?
Basketball, I got introduced to before I started playing organized when we were growing up. My whole family, I've got a talented group of cousins that have come out of the DC area that have gone on to great accomplishments at different colleges and universities. I talked about my cousin Adrian Branch, my cousin Vanessa Blair, who's now the head coach at George Mason for the women's basketball team. She has 3 sisters that all played college basketball and did very well. 2 went to East Tennessee State. My cousin Adrian Branch, his brother Phil Branch. I've got loads of cousins that are talented. So they kind of introduced me to the sport because that's all we did when we got together, family reunions. We played basketball, hooped it up, But at 10 years old, I made a transition over, believe it or not, 5 seasons of playing soccer. And I know, as a father of a soccer player, I played 5 seasons of soccer and, started playing basketball, organized. And I think after that first season, that's when I knew this is the sport that I wanted to play and concentrate on because I was pretty good at it.
Well, one thing about soccer, it's great training for basketball. Like,
it is.
Like Elijah one. And I remember when you played, you were very nimble. You were very coordinated. Like you could play, you could shoot the ball outside a lot, but you were, you had a very good high post game. You could dribble the ball. And is a lot of that from playing soccer, using your feet?
The footwork for sure, definitely helped me, be a little bit more nimble in the post and have some of those, what I call, be able to boogie down on the block a little bit. And, the soccer coordination definitely helped the cardio for sure. I was always when we would do preseason workouts, my motto was like, all right, I've got to be out here for 20, 30 minutes running these 3 miles in the morning. You might as well get something out of it. So I would push myself. And then that would lead to me being able to play, 40 minutes if need be, in an ACC game. So the footwork, cardio, soccer definitely helped out.
Well, one of the reasons why you went to Fort Union, so I read, was that you were young. You started school when you were young. So by the time you graduated from DeMatha, you were still 17 years old.
I was.
Yes. And nowadays that would never happen. Once someone identifies an athlete, they reclass, hold them back. They want those kids to be as old as possible when they're in high school. So you started school early?
I did. Mom was always a proponent of, hey, if you could start getting, education soon. And it started as early as preschool, you know what I mean? Started me in early. And, she thought about it somewhere around 4th or 5th grade, Julian, as you get a little older, stuff started to catch up with me. I became a little bit more of a lazy student, doing just enough to get by. And sometimes that wasn't good enough. Spent a lot of summers in summer school coming up through 5th and 6th grade, 7th grade. And then right around 8th grade is the first time they wanted to have that conversation about, maybe you should do 8th grade over again. And I was like, the conversation stopped as soon as it started for me because I had 2 friends that when I was promoted from 7th grade, they stayed back in 8th grade. And I remember how the kids used to talk about the fact that these guys stayed back. So for me, I didn't want that negative stigma. Now, had this been today's age where parents are moving different schools, if my mom and dad would have said, hey, think about doing 8th grade, we're going to move you over to another school. Okay. Nobody knows me over there. You know what I mean? I could do 8th grade over again. And it probably would have been the best thing maturity-wise because I needed to catch up, as far as taking on responsibilities of doing your homework, because you need to, not being told. And it was never a question of whether I could do the work. It's just me applying myself. And that's where I think the maturity would have come in. It did come in as I was in high school, learned a couple of tough lessons when my first couple of years at DeMatha, but really my first year. But then when I got to Fork Union, it really was, hey, everything was regimented, is segmented. You had study hall, mandatory every night, 7, nothing to do, no distractions, all boys, military. They take away all distractions down there. And that's when I really grew, in my maturity. And it was a noticeable difference.
Well, getting back to basketball for a second, what effect did Adrian Branch had on you? Like, Adrian Branch was a great guard on that lefty team that won the ACC title, I think in 84.
84.
Finally broke through for lefty Drizel. He'd been knocking on the door for many, many years. Just a great guard, left-handed guard.
Yeah.
Kind of for folks who are younger, kind of played a little bit like Jalen Rose, maybe I would compare him to, if anyone. But what effect did he have on your game?
Yeah, I mean, you talk about a 6'8" point guard that can shoot the ball from 3, versatile, physically gifted, just a great basketball IQ, great basketball motor. He was my idol growing up. You know what I mean? A lot of people before there was Len Bias, it was Adrian Branch. And this is a guy that I could reach out, I could hug, I could get straight conversations from. I remember him taking me under his wing and bringing me up to the University of Maryland. And you couldn't have told me, that everything around him, his aura was glowing in gold. You know what I mean? So for me, watching my cousin and being, directly related as first cousins, getting the tutelage, playing one-on-one and watching him and his older brother, Tom Branch, God rest his soul, who was also a great two-sport player at DeMatha, watching them go at it. His other brother, Philip, second oldest brother. Just watching these guys go at it, that influence from Adrian, man, from everything for me, and was originally the reason why I chose the number 42. Oh. Adrian was 24 growing up, and we used to talk about, when he told me, he said, "You're going to be a different type of ball player than me because you're going to be a big kid. You're probably going to play more inside. So you could be just as talented, but you'll be in a different style." So for me, to kind of embody that statement was to flip my number instead of 24. Most people would, try to use the same number. I said, let me flip it because I'll be different than he was. And I took on 42.
Did he have a role? I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say that's how big of an influence Adrian was for me.
Yeah. Did he have a role with you going to DeMatha?
It was always kind of written. I mean, my mom and, his parents, my mom and dad. So Adrian's mom and my dad are brothers and sisters. So we are always closely related, close family reunions. So it was always kind of the family more so than Adrian that, said, hey, this is a direction, this is an opportunity for TJ to go into DeMatha. But for my mom looking around and the lay of the land, public school in Prince George's County growing up during that time just wasn't great. And she was always a stickler for making sure that I had the best academic opportunities available. We looked, for her, it was no choice but private school. So it was either going to be DeMatha, Gonzaga, St. John's, and for her, the clear choice was DeMatha, and that's where we focused our direction.
Did you grow up University of Maryland fan? Like, I'm a little older than you, so we were all Georgetown fans because John Thompson was building that while we were in school. And it was a very exciting time to be a basketball fan. Were you a Maryland fan because your cousin, or were you a Georgetown fan?
I would never say that I was a fan of any team growing up. And being a high school player, I appreciated watching good college basketball. I was heavily influenced by University of Maryland because my cousin played there. And I loved going to the games. We got tickets to go watch them play. But, for me, I never really was vested in any one team, never really like a jersey or supporting any one team. I was just like, this is good basketball. And where am I going to end up going? That was really my focus from early on. So, and I was heavy into the ACC bias. For me, the East Coast ACC bias, it was no doubt in my mind that I wanted to play in the ACC. Now, I did look at other opportunities, but, heavily influenced was I by the ACC and wanting to challenge myself at that level.
Yeah. Well, one thing that we didn't have in Northern Virginia, it was hard for our best players to get on AAU teams. I mean, the very best players, yes, but there wasn't a lot of opportunities for like the like a notch below the top stars. But I guess in DC and suburban Maryland, I think you guys had more access to AAU back then. So who'd you play for and with, and was that important to your development?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So my earliest AAU experience was with the great Riley Gore. He from the Prince George's County area. He ran Potomac Valley AAU, which ultimately turned into the Duke Blue, or to the not Duke, but to the Blue Devils program. But Riley Gore, great influence on a lot of kids out of that DC, or the whole DMV, really. I got a chance to play with some great players. My main man, Kurt Trouble Smith, Mike, goodness gracious, Henry Hall, played at Oxford Hill. I'm surprised I can't call his name. But Mike Vincent, but it was Mike Tate. God bless America. Yeah. Getting old. I'm getting old, Julian. Too old for these senior moments. But a whole host of guys that I get a chance to play against and with. Played with, my man Grant Hill when we played the youth games, and went up to the Boston Shootout team. Dickie Simpkins, great host of guys in the DMV that I got a chance to, play against and play with during the AAU circuit. And I think the place where I really cut my teeth, Julian, when you talk about that story that you'll probably share here about me blocking your shot, being physical, came from my experiences with youth games. We went down to Birmingham, Alabama, and playing at Hines Junior High was our practice venue. Now I was working DC Summer Youth Employment under the great Marion Berry that started that program, and we would work summer camp at Hines Junior High, and then we would have basketball practice afterwards. And the coaches up there, man, there were no excuses, Julian. There were, when we would do just layup lines and warm up, they would stand right around the paint. As soon as you come through, pow, smacking you hard on it. That's how it's going to be down in Birmingham. So don't cry about it. So that physicality that I learned that carried me into being a very physical, tough player in the ACC, I learned not at DeMatha, not at Fort Union. It started in youth games in the DC area, because if you aren't physical, if you aren't tough mentally, physically, you're not going to cut it, man. It was just a different game back then.
Did you play with your grade, or did you play with your age when you played AAU?
I played mostly with my age, so I would be usually a younger guy on those teams. Okay. You know what I mean?
So you play with your grade. So you play with your grade.
My grade. Yeah, sorry, my grade. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's how I was able to play. I had already graduated UVA, but I was still 17, and went to the Boston Shootout, and we played on that team. Mike Smith, Grant Hill, Kurt Smith, great DMV legends. Dickie Simpkins was on that team as well, but I was able to play because I was a younger cat still.
Yeah, and was your game when you played with those guys the same? Now you're very much you're a low post player, but you're not necessarily a shot first. You're very much a distributor. You do everything. To me, you were a good high post, but when I was doing research for this interview, everyone described you as a low post guy. I remember you being all around the post. Is that true? My memory correct?
Yeah. Well, you had the advantage, Julian, of being able to see Ted Jeffries, up at Slaughter, being able to see me play. That's when you saw a little bit more of the versatile Ted Jeffries.
Yeah. But you could do it. You can go coast to coast, behind the back. You're all that. Ball
handling, all of that stuff. But when you're a system guy playing, at UVA, when you got the likes of the great Bryant, Stith, Corey Alexander, Junior Burroughs, not enough basketballs in the state of Virginia, let alone Charlottesville, Virginia, to kind of be able to do some of the things. And I think they I don't know if they wanted to allow me to do that. Maybe I didn't do it well enough for them to be able to say, we're confident with Ted, handling the ball. But, you can see me in certain clips handling the ball during the press. I was always a good passer and very deferring. Yeah. You know what I mean? So an unselfish player. I think I had a pretty good basketball IQ, and I would argue with a lot of these coaches even today, had I been given more opportunities to score, maybe just run one play a game for me, I could definitely give you a basket. And the numbers showed that. So like, it was an incredible career that I had. But yeah, I always worked on all facets of my game. I love to handle. All big guys want to handle the ball. Ralph Sampson. They talk about how Ralph in the NBA wanted to be a point guard. At 7'4". All big guys want to handle the ball. All of us want to be able to take shots. I just worked on it and applied it when I could.
What kind of player do you think you would have been today? So my guess is you would have probably been shooting 3-pointers. At least you would have tried if the program allowed it. But I would think your game would fit today's basketball quite well.
I think so too. I would obviously have to work on a little bit because of the spread offense and not too many, true back to the basket players in the NBA, in college basketball. Last time Luka Garza, was a huge, talent on the interior at Iowa, unstoppable, 2-time Big Ten Player of the Year. But how does that translate to today's NBA? He's looking to try to, stretch his game to become a little bit more of a forward. But, when you have heavy feet like he does, is not as nimble, but still a great talent, I would have to look at being more versatile. Stretch 4 is what I would have probably tried to angle myself to be more confident in that position rather than a back to the basket player. You could always, when given an opportunity, isolated down on the block, use those skills, but can you put the ball on the deck? Can you get around a guy? Can you, one dribble pull up, drive, draw, and dish, create opportunities, or shoot the 3 with some type of consistency, hopefully 35% or better from the 3-point line.
Yeah. Well, getting back to AAU for a second, how would you compare your AAU experience to what goes on today? I mean, your AAU experience was pretty serious. Nowadays, though, AAU is, it's all year round. It's probably more important than your high school team. When you played, there was nothing more important than DeMatha in terms of basketball. So how do you compare the different AAU type environments?
Well, I think it's great for the kids nowadays to get that almost all year round exposure. Guys, colleges and universities get a chance to see these kids, and it provides opportunities for them to get scholarships. For us, when basketball season and springtime came around, the AAU started, we were going to play the AAU circuit, go out, try to win championships. It was great playing against, these whole host of all-stars that they got put together on one team and they go challenge ourselves. But when that season was over, we went back and we're going to be in a gym somewhere. So we probably missed out on opportunities to get exposure, continued exposure, where these guys are always being seen because they're playing, a pretty tough grind. I think the game has changed. The advent of the and one mixtape with a lot of ball handling and the guys want to show each other. Even today, you see a guy drive on somebody, step on his defender's shoes, the guy trips and falls down, and the whole gym rises up and gets, crazy. It's like, no, he didn't shake him out of his shoes. He just stepped on his foot. But they want to see the crossover. They want to see a guy get embarrassed. Yeah. That type of stuff happened for us, but it was real. Somebody got crossed up, somebody got beaten, somebody got drived on and dropped one off for a dunk. But it wasn't the end all be all. That's what guys got to kind of live for, the embarrassment part of the game. But hey, that's the evolution, and it is what it is.
Do you admire that they have the social media that you didn't do? So you'd play a game, and then you guys might go out and have some fun, or maybe get on the phone, call your boys when you got home, tell them about the game. Nowadays, right after the game, you can look at the bench. The kids are already on the phone. They're tweeting about the game. They're doing this. They're always tweeting. Your game, you weren't really in contact with players throughout the nation unless you went to 5-star camp, AAU tournaments, or something like that. Nowadays, all these kid prospects are in contact because the social media kind of binds everything. Do you admire that environment, or do you like it better the way you had it?
We say all the time, thank God we didn't grow up in an age where instant gratification of social media was available. That has a way of being good and bad, because you can see for those guys who are doing things that maybe knucklehead moves and where it gets them in trouble. You know what I mean? You're being a kid. You're being a 17-year-old, 18-year-old kid, whatever, and you make a dumb mistake. Now it's all over the internet, and now you got to deal with that. That kid made a mistake. You know what I mean? That happens. Yeah. But there are the good things that happen from being able to promote yourself now with the NIL, name, image, and likeness. That helps to kind of help promote yourself. And hell, kids are going to school with $1 million contracts, where when our day, you couldn't do that. You could move around because of, your social media hype and people, you got a chance. Oh, I don't even know if in recruiting that this is important as it is in business, but if they're looking at how many, followers you have as a player, I don't know if that sways the coach one way or another. Yeah. I'll say, in addition to their talent, I could see how it could be, what, that kid's a little bit too much focused on social media. I want him focused on basketball. Or this kid's a draw. He brings an opportunity for us to put rear ends in the seats, and maybe sell some tickets and have more of a crowd. Who knows? That's a great point, because like an old school type coach might not understand it, might not get it, but now like a younger coach, like I forgot the guy's name, George Mason, kind of more you're hip to it. Maybe he'd use it as a benefit. This could bring our own program some more publicity. You mean Kim English, the new coach? Yeah. And shout out to Kim English. I don't know him, but he comes with a lot of fanfare about what he's able to bring. He was on the short list for the University of Maryland job. Yeah. He just got there to, George Mason. Shout out to my DeMatha Stag over there too, Dwayne Simpkins. So yeah, hopefully that program keeps doing well. But yeah, for my cousin who's on the women's side over at George Mason, they utilize that social media. I follow them on IG. Obviously, I'm gonna support my family. But promoting the program, showing clips of how they work, what celebrations in the locker room after big wins and big victories. That's a part of the promotion of the game now. Promoting a program. If you're a coach trying to build a program that only had 2 conference wins last year, and you've already surpassed that, in your first year, that's a big step. That's a big, and you can see the evolution. It's tangible. Yeah. I mean, I'll add this, Julian. It never even dawned on me, but when I signed to go to UVA as a 17-year-old senior, UVA was 12-16. Like, not many people are going to a program that was 12-16, to play for an ACC team. For me, this is where I want to be. I feel comfortable. Let's go. Yeah, well, we're going to get to UVA, but I will say this from the outset. You made a tremendous choice because you were needed from the moment you got there. So you got a chance to maximize. There's some people that they can look back in their college career. I didn't get any opportunities. It was the wrong time. And like for example, at DeMatha with Mustaf, but at UVA, you were a perfect fit for UVA, perfect post player for Jeff Jones and also for Holland. But let's get back to for DeMatha. So you arrive at DeMatha, storied program. And I believe you were the youngest starter in the history of the youngest varsity player in the history of DeMatha. So one of the yeah. So when you got there, did you fit in right away? Did you was it an adjustment playing at DeMatha? I probably fit in too well academically. I mean, where I suffered academically my first year. A big thing that I was about my transition was being a part of the cool group. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And what suffered was, the kids that I was hanging around with still did their homework. They still did what they were supposed to do. But my thing was, hey, being cool with all the right guys, being a ball player. But then I wasn't doing the work that I needed to do. So I suffered tremendously. It was a huge eye-opening experience when I was sitting down with the principal and they were talking about maybe not letting me come back. But they knew the caliber of kid. They also told me, it's not a question of whether or not you can do the work here. It's just you applying yourself. So you got some work to do this summer. We're going to, get you straight and you'll be back there. But yeah, I fit in probably too well, when you thought about it. When I think about it, but I got my I got my stuff together. I got my stuff together, Julian, my sophomore year, and really never looked back. Academically was strong, and I won't say I did better than getting through, you know what I mean? But I never really, I was not on a roll. I was never, dean's list, anything like that. But that changed when I got to Fort Union. That was the maturity, growth, and the jump for me. But love my time at DeMatha. I've got a lot of great friendships that I still hold true today, and we talk pretty regularly from that time at DeMatha. Was it hard coming off the bench? I mean, when you're not starting, and you have to be able to come out and get loose right away and be confident right away. When you start, everyone's kind of nervous. Everyone's got the jitters together. You come in the game cold. Is this something that you had to adjust to, or was it fine with you? I was ready to play all the time. Next man up. This is my opportunity. I'm gonna get in here and show why I should be in our starting five. You know what I mean? So no, it wasn't, getting cold and all of that stuff. Julian, I'll tell you, my 2 years on varsity, that is the toughest. Our practices, especially our last year, in that 88 class, that was the toughest. Day in and day out practice were tougher than any game that we played, other than the 3 that we lost that season. So the best competition that we played against on a regular basis was in our gym every day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like the grind was real. Like when we got in, this is now fun. You know what I mean? Like you watch guys that get after it defensively, and I knew when we used to call certain plays, after a timeout, Morgan would call a half-court trap. We all got giddy because we knew we were getting ready to get a steal, and then somebody's getting ready to get a breakaway dunk. You know what I mean? So the game was, when it was your call, when you got, you jumped in, stiff, whatever, but you were ready to go. So for me, it was easy. I didn't have any problems. I didn't like not starting, if that's the answer, but I was fine. When it was my time to go, I was ready.
What makes Wootten so special? I mean, why is he such a great coach? And what's his style?
More than the X and O's, he was a great mastermind of the game, understanding time, time and score. But outside of what he did on the court, being a tactician, it was how he became a leader of men. The valuable lessons that you learn off the court, that you talk to anybody that played for Morgan, we will all recite certain, sayings that Morgan Wootten would pass down to all of us. Inch by inch, life is a cinch. Yard by yard, life is hard. Not long but strong. All these certain, sayings that Morgan used to say. Practice it, men. We're gonna go out here. We're gonna go not long, but we're gonna go strong. And guys go out there and work their tail off for him. It was the conversation that Morgan would do for you as an alum. For me, the conversations that we took with us and as being young men into the college ranks and the professional ranks, that all of us and each of us still hold at some part. That's what he did best. Now, Morgan was no easy guy to play for now, because he was the master of sarcasm. And sarcasm so hard that it could cut you. You know what I mean? Certain people can't deal with it. They can't. I fell victim to it a couple of times where it was, it almost brought me to tears. It was so hard, and I don't think that I was one that was, soft by any stretch of the imagination, but it cut deep, in front of your peers. So you've got to be mentally tough. But he followed it up at the end of the game by saying, I love you, right? So it's that tough love, but then following it up with this reassurance that I still love you. But I had to get into it. Maybe a little too much for some people, probably was too much for me, to be honest. But I'm still here. I'm still solid, and probably have tougher skin because of it. But I know some other players that have gone through the program and still love Morgan and what they did for him. But the sarcasm that he used as a tool of teaching was tough in certain areas.
Yeah. Did any players ever talk back to him? I mean, he's a legend. Did any players that just didn't go for it and say, "No, you can't talk to me like that"?
I'm sure there were some that did. I don't know how long they lasted in the program. Here's the value of being Morgan Wootten, probably outside of his first 5 or 10 years as a head coach at DeMatha. When he looks down the bench and he's got a list of talented 10, 11, 12, maybe even 15 players that are better than most high school teams in the country, you don't have to put up with the one guy who's, mouthing off or didn't like what you said or don't like how you treated them. He can say, "Hey, no problem. This isn't a program for you. Maybe you ought to go somewhere," and would help you with that decision. Like, this is the decision. So when he didn't have to cut off his nose to spite his face. But I'm sure more so than the players, there were parents that he had to deal with that had probably a sharper tongue and tone and tenor that he had to deal with and say, "All right, how do I manage this? Because this is a parent of a great kid. I don't want to cut the kid and lose my opportunity." Because at the end of the day, Morgan was a fierce competitor, and he loved winning more so than he he hated losing probably more so than he hated, loved winning. So to making sure he kept balance between, all right, what's the right thing to do here? I can't have a kid mouth it off to me and then show the wrong example to the rest of the team. Mm-hmm. But I don't want to cut the kid off because he's a great talent, mm-hmm. Despite his parents and their influence and stuff like that. So that's always I'm sure coaches deal with that today, but more often than not, I don't know of many stories of guys that got away with talking tough to Morgan and still being at the program. They were probably ended up somewhere else.
Were there any other coaches in DC that you particularly respected, high school coaches?
High school coaches in DC. Coach Mike McLeese at Dunbar. Fantastic job. Again, another leader of men, but had some great teams in the inner city. That did a fantastic job coaching. He's one that stands out for me. I talked about Riley Gore, that coached, and then, oh my goodness, senior moment again, coached at Potomac, and he coached Monty Williams at Potomac High School in Maryland. Yeah. I'm sorry, Coach. I'm sorry if you ever seen this.
Not Lamar Butler.
No.
He's Oxon Hill. He's Oxon Hill.
Yeah. So, goodness gracious, I see his name right now. I can't call it, but he coached at Potomac High School, coached Monty Williams, who went on to Notre Dame, who's now coaching the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, awesome. So what are some of your high points in your high school career? I mean, obviously with DeMatha, you're always going to be playing for the city title or just right there. What are some of the high points that you remember?
Well, you talk about not starting and being ready when you come in the game. So first conference game, we're at Carroll High School my senior year. And my teammate, Jerrod Mustaf, and as great as he was, Jerrod also knew how good he was in a conference and sometimes would pick a game where he's going to try to do some of his own things. You know what I mean? And this is when Jay got off to a pretty rough start, and Morgan benched him and put me in. And this was, sometimes when they say how fortune kind of shines on you sometimes, this was that day where I had a stellar game, so at Carroll, playing on the road and I get my chance to play. Morgan's making an example out of Mustaf because he's kind of goofing around, not playing like he needs him to play. And I go out and finish the game with 17 points, 11 rebounds coming off the bench. That's the luxury, that's the balance and Morgan didn't have to sub me out. You know what I mean? So that was a greater lesson for Jerrod. Look, Jerrod, you want to keep acting up. I got a guy right here that can take your place. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that to me was a special game. I got, Prince George's County Player of the Week after that game. So, I think I followed up with another game that was pretty good. So that game particularly stands out. But, playing Coolidge for the city title game. See, my junior year, we lost to Dunbar in the city title game. So that was a little bit of a blemish. And we also ended up losing 6 games that season, which is... That's a lot for DeMatha. Exactly, for DeMatha, that's a lot. That's like having a losing season almost. But then, coming back, playing against Donald Hodge in that city title game and getting the win. And in that game, down the stretch, inside of 2 minutes, hitting 2 free throws to kind of help clinch the game. Mm-hmm. Having ice water in the veins, coming off the bench, playing in the integral part of the game to sink 2 free throws was a big moment as well. So those 2 stand out for certain.
Now, I know you've probably been asked this a million times, but couldn't Coach Wootten have found a way to put you and Mustaf in the lineup together?
I've heard since then, a lot of coaches, when we lost early down at the Beach Ball Classic down in Myrtle Beach, lost 2 games, one to Eric Sullivan, who played at Louisville, and he was at Hillcrest High School in South Carolina, and then to Eau Claire High School, Joe Rett, who played at South Carolina. And those games, when they came back and looked at the film, they said probably should have started Ted and given him an opportunity to play. And no slight to, believe it or not, everybody thinks I played behind Mustaf. it was really a guy named Bobby Hill, who was probably the most talented, undersized. We called him the long left-hander because he was also a lefty, but he wasn't, very skilled athletically as far as he wasn't a great leaper, but very talented, huge basketball IQ, great player. And he ended up starting that year. So Mustaf, although was the big name, it's easy to say it was Mustaf, but it was probably Bobby Hill that I would have interchanged out with. But Bobby just had, he showed up better than I did. And, whether it be confidence, IQ, maturity, whatever the case was, that was Morgan's decision to start him rather than me. But, he found a way to make sure that I was in the game. So what's the old saying? It's not who starts the game, where you start, it's how you finish and who finishes.
Tell whatever happened to Bobby Hill. Where did you go to college?
Oh, Bobby's working for Radio One. Great guy, great parent. Text message. He ended up going on to Mount St. Mary's, playing for Bowtie Phelan, had a great career there. Super guy, always has been. And we talked the other day about getting together with the new Mike Jones, the head coach at DeMatha, letting him get a chance to talk to some concerned alumni and welcome him into the fold and into the program and however we could help. So again, another relationship that came from that DeMatha, that was spawned at DeMatha. Yeah.
God, Mike Jones did a terrific job at St. Stephen's. I saw them play a few times this year. They really play hard. He's going to do great at DeMatha. At least I think so. Well, you want to? I was
going to say I look forward to it. I hear a lot of good things. I don't know him. Heard only good things about him, so I'm looking forward to him. I just want to say, hey, Coach, anything you need, anything we can do to help you out, let's go get it. DeMatha's made its decision, despite what some alumni may feel about it. They wanted the DeMatha guy. Somebody saying, DeMatha's made a decision. They're moving forward, and here we go. Let's welcome him with open arms and help him get some victories.
Now, was Joe Wootten considered for that job, Morgan's son?
I think he was in the running, but obviously they decided not to go that route.
Wow. I guess we got to leave it at that, huh?
Yeah, I'm gonna stay right there. Love Joe, love his family. It didn't happen for him in the first transition. And Joe has established himself over at O'Connell.
Yeah, done great.
Done a great job over there, and hopefully he continues to do so.
Yeah. Usually you have a lot to say about everything. That was one of you. I can tell you what you want to tell you something. Well, let's get to Fort Union. Yeah. So now I know that UVA offered you right out of DeMatha. You didn't need to go to postgraduate.
Right.
A lot of folks are going to postgraduate these days. Everyone's trying to find an angle to get older, get more seasons before their college career. Why exactly did you decide to do that? I know that my recollection was Brent Dabbs was another player that they were looking at, but he was a junior college, but they needed a post player badly. Yeah.
Well, they brought in, if you remember, they did bring in Brent Dabbs, and they brought in Curtis Williams as well, two JUCO players that were post players, older, more physically gifted, more mature than I was at 17 years old. And the fact was that I was 17 years old and could use some more maturing. Again, I was never considered a bad kid. Never at one time ever in 4 years at DeMatha ever got to the principal's office for disciplinary actions. You know what I mean? It was always just about growing up a little bit, being more mature and knowing how to shoulder responsibility. So they thought in the best interest and heavily influenced my mom. It's like, more than likely, if he comes here as a freshman now, he's going to redshirt. Whereas he could choose to not start his clock, go to Fort Union, shoulder more responsibilities. He's in, our backyard, basically. We get a chance to see him. He could come over to the school at any point in time, be with the guys. It all sounded great for my mom. She sweetened the deal, Julian, by saying if I went to Fort Union, because I was headed to Maine Central. If it was up to me, I was going to Maine Central Institute. I was going to go play with my man, Sam Cassell, and some of the other host of great players that they had up there. I wanted to go and play with, because I was used to doing that here, great AAU programs. And I had talked to Sam. I was telling him I was thinking about coming up there. He was like, no, just go. But Mom said, if you go to Fort Union, and only Fort Union, when you graduate, I'll give you an SUV. You know what I mean? how many times are they going to offer you that opportunity? You know, so she sweetened the deal. She came through at the end of the year. So that Pathfinder we used to ride around in, that was as a result of me making the decision to go to Fort Union.
Well, Ted, I know you remember this, but I refereed your game there. I remember you playing there, and I always like refereeing there. First of all, incredible talent there. You guys play some good teams, Hargrave and whoever else you'd play. But Fletcher Arritt was just the nicest guy, at least to officials. I really liked that guy. Well, what was he like, and what did you learn from him?
Hard nose.
Rest in peace. Yeah.
God rest Fletcher's soul. But you know, Fletcher, Morgan gave me the foundation. Fletcher let me flourish. He gave me the responsibility. It gave me the opportunity to be responsible, to shoulder that type of responsibility, carrying a team, being one of the integral guys that we're going to count on to score. I played with my teammate, had a lot of great teammates down there. Brian Davis, Michael Bright. Brian Davis went on to Vermont, ended up getting a JD and an MBA simultaneously, did the dual program as an attorney yourself. You know how to. Yeah, you didn't want that grueling task, right? Law school is hard enough.
Yeah.
But Michael Bright went to Cornell, had a great career there. J.J. Burton played at Virginia Tech, you know, and he and I were quote unquote the best two guys on the team as far as counting on the score and stuff like that. But Fletcher from word go was about developing Ted Jeffries, the player. And that to me was really, it was focused development. And I grew a lot there. And Fletcher, man, I used to love coming back, talking at his camps. He said, guys, the best big man that ever played at Fort Union Military Academy. And I'm probably butchered his accent, but I love Fletcher to death, man. He did a lot for my confidence. He did a lot for my game. Fort Union was a tough place to go to, when you're not used to the military and just the aspects, the regimentation of all, the cadence every day, the monotony of what that is, the no distractions, didn't feel like it was fun, but you found the fun with your teammates, your people that you went to, that you met and interacted with at Fort Union.
Was Coach Arritt the one to talk you into running cross country?
Like we had a choice. We didn't have a choice, Julian. No, that's man. I imagine me, 255 pounds, coming in, still. I was probably the skinniest fat guy you'd ever seen in your life. Weight's always been a challenge. We were dealing with it. But we had these silk running shorts on and half cut off shirts, and we had to run past the football team. And you see these guys that are just getting to school where nobody's in shape. You know what I mean? And the football team is falling out, dying, laughing at the basketball team. You got about 3 guys. You got 3 guys that are probably 7 guys. No, but I'll say about four guys, 6'10" or better, 6'9" or better. And they got on these skippy, like we look like Prefontaine when he's running that, back, but 240, 250. Man, it's like you got into shape quick just to look better in your little practice uniform when you ran at Fort Union. But to his credit, again, and part of his genius as a coach, nobody was in better condition. Fewer teams, I'll say, were better conditioned than we were. Mm-hmm. And again, for me, it was like, I remember we came and ran over at Western Memorial High School. We ran cross-country meet over there. And the UVA coaches came out to watch me run. And that little fire in my craw that day for certain. To turn out a pretty good time. I would usually do, Julian, you're an athlete, you remember the times, I would finish 3 miles under 20 minutes, under 21 for sure. So, I would get after it. For me, it was just like, it was always, look, it's not going to hurt long after you finish. It's going to hurt, but go get after it. You know what I mean? Get something out of it if you're going to be out there. And then I had the benefit of having Martin Kano's, the Olympic gold medal winner, his son, or Kip Kano's son, Martin Kano, who ran at Fort Union, and he would finish 3 miles in 15 minutes. It would be ridiculous. So he was the rabbit to try to catch up to. Never would I be able to do that.
Do you feel your cross country was helpful at UVA when you're in the ACC?
Conditioning wise, yeah. I think it's physical and mental. You know, having to get up and do something that you don't want to do, try to get something out of it. But it was team bonding. Mm-hmm. It was more than just going out and running 3 miles and getting in condition. It was that, all right, let's pull each other together. You know, if guys are slow, come on, push them, try to help them. You'll see guys that will run an extra lap with a guy who's lagging behind. John Crotty would get out there in a pair of, old steel-toed soldier's boots and run 3 miles just to have weighted ankles. And, guys that just work hard, man. So it was fun. It was conditioning. It was, built your mental calisthenics as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, you chose UVA. You stuck with your initial decision. Did you consider during your Fort Union time? Did you change your mind at all? Or was it always going to be UVA?
I thought about it. I thought maybe throwing my hat back in the ring and see what other opportunities. I forget what school came through. It was a big name school that came through and asked me, "Look, hey, are you still committed to UVA?" And Fletcher, being a UVA grad, was always a very protective, and UVA was making sure to say, "Look, they might come calling, but make sure you let them know that he's still UVA." Because at that point, I'm not under any type of what is your signing your agreement with UVA. Yeah. They had to release me to go to Fort Union. So people would ask, but I think the powers that be are around me said, "No, he's still UVA." Right. So I never really entertained going anywhere else.
Yeah. So what's your memory of the grounds when you first got here? So I know we were at Black Alumni Weekend a few weeks ago, and I mean the city has changed, the town has changed. It's modern. All the chains, stores, and restaurants we have up here are at UVA now. What's your first memories of the grounds?
I wish I was mature enough to look at the lawn and be awe-inspired by the majesty that it gives off. Man, I wasn't that focused on the lawn. I probably looked at the lawn when they talked about guys actually living here. I was like, no way would I be living. I don't care how prestigious it is. I don't know how much of an honor. I'm not trying to go outside and go to the bathroom late at night. Yeah. But that's as a 17-year-old kid coming into college. Yeah. I loved the university feel, and I remember I wasn't on ground, 30 minutes before I said, "This is what I'm talking about." Mm-hmm. Like I remember, and it's a strange thing. I had just come from James Madison, did 2 nights over there, and Lefty had just got the job. I had gone down with my high school buddy, Steve Hood, played at Maryland, was transferring to JMU. He was taking his unofficial. And my parents picked me up. We went over to UVA. We met at U-Haul, met Tom Perrin, assistant coach at the time, did a quick locker room tour, showed me that they had just renovated the locker room down at U-Haul. And then we were going over to Bryant Hall to have a little lunch with the team. And I remember, man, I was just like, when we were driving and we made that left just past Tuttle, driving by the football stadium, and I was looking down, and you remember the aquatic center wasn't there, it was just an open field, but just driving around the campus, it had that big college campus feel that I never knew that I was looking for until I felt it. Once we made that left and I looked down at the football field, not a football player, just left the basketball stadium, driving around grounds, I was like, this is what I'm talking about right here. Yeah. Yeah, and I was like, if this goes well, this could be it. Yeah. And I was, Terry Holland had already he had laid the groundwork, because for me, there were a lot of legends that came through DeMatha's doors to see a lot of players, especially Jerrod being an All-American, a lot of teams early on as he was making his decision. But Terry Holland coming in, and Terry was there for close to 7 to 10 days in and out of our gym, watching practice, going to games. And then when he finally did a in-school visit with me and my family, I was awestruck, because this is a guy I'm sitting there watching on TV every day. I'm like, wow, that's Terry Holland. Like, and he's coming here, they're talking about me, and thinking they're going to offer me a scholarship. I was honored. So when I got there, having that in the background and seeing what UVA represented, and then, as well as I do, you spend one night hanging out in Charlottesville on the grounds and hanging out with the right people. I say all the time, spring fling and fall fling is undefeated. Very few people leave those weekends and choose to go somewhere else.
No. Yeah. It's amazing. Well, speaking of Terry Holland, you had 1 year with Terry Holland. Did you know he might be leaving after that first year? And what was he like? What did he teach you?
I didn't know what Terry would be like as a coach. I didn't think it would be easy, but he was definitely more demanding than I anticipated. Like, he had a very soft, Southern demeanor when he came in and talked to your parents, and but it wasn't disingenuous by any stretch of the imagination. Mm-hmm. He was just a Southern gentleman, but he was also a honorary competitor. You know what I mean? He was a tough competitor. He used to, shout, obscenities at me during the course of my first year, catch the effing ball, and he's not coming in here. He's not effing coming in here. And that was an extension of that tough physical play that I had to get used to and get ready for in the ACC. Yeah. He obviously had bigger plans for me than I knew about, but that was a part of that grooming. And I was kind of shocked when I heard him yelling at me and screaming at me, but I was tough enough. I had tough enough skin to take it. It's not, he's not cussing at me. You know what I mean? He's not making me feel small. It's just, that's a part of the delivery. It's like, I need you to do what the hell I need you to do here. So Terry, he was my guy. And, I felt recruited. I felt important because of how he recruited me.
Right. Yeah. So you didn't have the sarcasm. You just had the curse words.
Right. Yeah. That's easier to talk. That's easier to manage and more palatable.
Yeah. Well, so your freshman year, you had three of my favorite who's great ball players. You had Kenny Turner, you had John Crotty, and Bryant Stith. What was it like? What was it like to play those guys?
Kenny Turner was probably the guy I was closest to on that team. John Crotty he was hard nosed. He was just, blue collar guy from Jersey, a baller, kept the gym rat, kept the ball in his hand. Bryant Stith was the quiet leader, but I don't know that I've ever seen a player with a drive and a motor and a determination to be Stith. Quiet, like he's not gonna give you the big rah-rah speech, get in the, he's just gonna get out there and show you by example. I mean, just country strong, determined, headstrong, not in a bullish way. Just like, if I'm gonna get a bucket, I'm gonna get a bucket. And there's nobody that's gonna keep me from doing it. Either I'm getting a bucket or I'm getting or going to the free throw line. Mm-hmm. And just an assassin from like all three levels. You think about his freshman year. B. Stith, got rookie of the year because he had the fortune. He tells me all the time. He said, "Look, I played with Richard Morgan. Richard Morgan can shoot you in a game, or he can shoot you out. Love Rich to death, but B. Stith, like, it was like, man, I got an opportunity to get some free baskets here if I just plant myself around the rim, get some offensive putbacks, and I know what I could do when given the opportunity." So yeah, B. Stith, man. But Kenny Turner was, as two post players that started during that time, that's when he was great at teaching me the game, telling me what I needed to do, being focused. I learned a lot from Kenny, not just on the basketball court. I tell him all the time, he was one of my big influences for me at UVA.
He's good.
And great dude. I mean, almost Mensa smart, but like very underrated and extremely talented as a ball player. Like, give that guy 2 healthy knees. He probably has a much longer career. Yeah. Give him 2 more inches, he's an NBA draft pick. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So,
yeah. So was it easy? It was easy to fit in on that team as a freshman. You felt like you were ready?
I think so. We didn't take any unnecessary ribbing from anybody. There was no, big hazing. That it was. Hey, look, you're going to be playing, so we need to get you up to speed.
Yeah.
And I wasn't a guy that had a chip on my shoulder. I was willing to learn, hardworking, and trial by fire when Terry threw me out there. I remember Brian Stith told me we were doing an exhibition game playing a military team down in Faison, North Carolina, where Anthony Oliver is from. And this was like our first organized game, my first year. And Brian Stith leaned over and he said, "Congratulations, you're like I don't know what number he said. He said, you're say hypothetically, it was the 35th first year player to start at UVA." And this is before Terry was coming in the room to announce the starting lineup, who's going to play. And I was like blown away. I was like, wow. We had Jeff Daniels, another first year player, Sean Wilson. I figured I was, probably better than Sean. God rest his soul, great guy. But, my focus is on, you got a fifth-year player that, probably is going to get the nod over you. You'll just try to figure out some minutes on the backside.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of your biggest wins, and they didn't cover this game on the ACC tournament special that was on ESPN, which I really enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it was on the ACC network. But you guys beat Clemson in the semifinals of the ACC tournament your freshman year, and put you in the final. And you went against Eldon Campbell and Dale Davis. And that must have been a daunting task.
Man, the first time was the daunting task. You know what I mean? So, you get the good fortune that, you don't always have that now in the new conference. But, easily the strongest dude that I've ever played against. Rodney Rogers is probably the second strongest.
Yeah.
But Dale Davis, when they tried to prepare me mentally for what I was getting ready to face, they said, you have to get into his legs and carve out some space if you're going to try to get a rebound. They talked about how he could keep his hands up above his head and just nudge you with his hips, lower body strength, and just bury you under the rim. So if you're going to rebound the ball and keep him from getting offensive putbacks, you got to carve out some real estate. And, man, they had, I don't know if you remember, the dunk meter that they had at Clemson. Did you ever go down there and ever see it, or just see it on TV?
I've heard legend, yeah.
So these guys are, extremely athletic for their size. Eldon Campbell probably had a 40-inch vertical, easily. Dale Davis, just strong and athletic, quick hops. So going up against both of these guys, it's going to be a battle. It's going to be a grind. And in that game, we got physical on a 1-on-1. And Dale said something to me, and I was like, I'm here. I said something like, I'm here all day. He said, don't shoot me a chicken wing. Don't hit me like that again. I said, I'm here all day for it. So I'm never backing down. I grew up in DC, playing against tough guys. You got to be physical. You definitely can't, not step up when somebody's talking crap. You don't got to talk crap, but you don't got to take it either.
Yeah.
He wasn't going to see that I was scared. Man, that next shot went up, and Dale hit me with the back of his hand right in my temple. The lights went out for a hot second.
Wow.
And I just started jogging down the court, and I'm supposed to take the ball out. And Kenny Turner's screaming at me, "Ted, you got to take the ball out." I just turned, looked over my shoulder, and kept running. I don't even know if it registered. I was still seeing stars. Like, literally, it blacked out for a second, and I didn't know where I was for about 10 seconds. And I was like, wait a minute, okay, I'm back. But yeah, just sure, it was probably a little dirty play. It came with the territory, and we just had this exchange not but 5 seconds prior to. But man, yeah, those are days that I don't miss, but I was better for it.
Yeah. Well, you do beat those guys though, and you get the best of them. You put them out, and then you qualify for the NCAA's, which I think.
But correct me if I'm wrong, Julian. So we played Carolina first.
Yes.
Carolina first.
But they were down that year. They had like Rick Fox, and they had Scott Williams.
All right, let's go through. Keep going.
King Rice.
Yeah. They still had a lot of good players on that team. They might not have shown up, down is what, they were third, maybe fourth in the conference.
Yeah. That's true.
You know what I mean? So we got past them, and then no. So that wasn't the year that Clemson won the ACC because they would not have been.
No.
What seed were they?
Clemson was a second seed because you knocked them off in the tournament. I don't know. I don't know who the first seed was. It may have been Duke or Georgia Tech. It could have been Georgia Tech because they had Kenny Anderson, right?
They had Kenny Anderson.
Yeah. It may have been
and Dennis Scott.
And Dennis Scott. Yeah.
Bryant and Bryant. 3-guard.
Oh, Bryant. Lethal Weapon 3. Bryant
Oliver. Yeah.
So, but then you go to the NCAA tournament and you guys play Syracuse, who I think they had 6 or 7 future NBA players on the same team. Do you remember that game?
Close game. Derrick Coleman. You had they had was it LaRon Ellis at that time? I think it was LaFonso played at Notre Dame.
Right.
LaRon Ellis played at Syracuse. I'm trying to think. They had the wing player. They had a lot of talent on that team. Very close game. Stith was in the mix, keeping us in there. Crotty had a great game. Ultimately falling, but Derrick Coleman, he was the prototype forward coming to the pros.
Yeah. Is he one of the best players you played against in college, Derrick Coleman?
I would say he was the best player. This is a one-off, so I didn't get a chance to see him like home and all of that stuff.
Right.
But obviously, what he became after he left Syracuse, he probably looked at me as like, "What's up, young fella? Don't worry about it. It's gonna be, we're gonna make this short and sweet. We're gonna make it easy for you. Short trip back." But you look at his stats, just what he became more so than what he was in college when we played him. But he was tough. Just 6'10", big body, strong, gifted.
Well, look, great freshman year. Sophomore year is a big deal because Jeff Jones is going to step in for Terry Holland. Yeah. Now, is it easy for an assistant coach to become a head coach? Because you guys know him as JJ. Is it better to have a guy come from another school because then you don't know him as an assistant and a former player there?
Right. There's a familiarity with it, but then it's also tough to transition into the guy. They know their role as assistants. They become the buffer of information and things with the head coach. Like, all right, how much stuff do I actually tell Coach Holland? How much do we just kind of, we'll play the good cop. And then when we got to play bad cop, it's because we've given you a little leeway, stuff like that. Not necessarily, just understanding that relationship between the player and the coach. It's tough for him to transition. And I remember a time more specifically, we came back from Notre Dame. And I don't know if you remember this game, best 2 minutes in basketball that I've ever seen. Brian Stith scored 19 points in less than 2 minutes to win on the road at Notre Dame.
I remember.
He scored at all 3 levels. But you had another guy, John Crotty, who was vying for popularity and thought that there were certain opportunities that he should have gotten a part of that stretch and felt some kind of way. So now you're trying to manage egos as a young coach in the ACC. And we had a team meeting that day to he's going to quell all of that nonsense that he had to deal with after the fact. Probably hearing from parents, probably hearing from, players that felt some kind of way. And we were in the locker room and JJ was shaking. It's like that nervous, I don't want to have this conversation, or I'm nervous about being on camera. You've seen guys on camera for the first time and they're shaking. And I was looking at him, I was like, wow, this is a tough conversation for him to have. And I had no idea what he was going to talk about. But, he had to try to be stern. And this is still in the non-conference part of our schedule in this first season at UVA, talking to arguably his 2 best players on the team, but not directly. It's kind of the big conversation for the whole team, but people who've been in that conversation, it didn't take long for us to figure out what was going down or what had gone down. So yeah, I would say I don't envy his position, but I would say Jeff handled it pretty well because he was the fastest coach to 60, the fastest and youngest coach to 60 wins in the ACC at the time. That it worked out pretty well for him. And JJ's a very skilled tactician as a basketball coach. He could coach the game. He's a coach's son. And God rest his dad had just recently passed away.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, JJ is immensely talented as a coach. And he's earned his positions that he's had because of his knowledge of the game.
Very clever player too.
Yeah.
So it's funny because you would never think of Bryant, Stith, and John Crotty having ego problems because they both appear from the outside very selfless players. So you would never know that. I've heard that before. I interviewed someone else who actually was an opponent of yours that had picked up on it. I don't know, Grant. I don't know who mentioned it, but it was surprising to me.
Well, you got to remember this. You're in your. This is Stith's second year. No, this is Stith's junior year, third year. Crotty's fourth year. So everybody's got an agenda and everybody's got angles towards that next step. Crotty arguably at the end of his third year was easily top 3-point guard in the conversation for top point guard in the ACC. Was making a real name for himself about transitioning to the next level. And then that fourth year, you want to, obviously continue to grow and show. So if you can't show, maybe you don't feel like you're growing. Stith, again, and I think, I don't know if those were two egos that were happening at that time, as it was maybe a one-sided kind of situation and somebody else was brought in. So
well, we can leave it at that.
At the end of the day, bro, we saw what we saw.
Yeah. And
I love Jay Crott. I would never say anything bad about Jay Crott. Jay Crott has earned, the guy to take the route that he did to earn his way in the 12 years in the NBA that he did. There's no two ways about it. He was easily one of the toughest, and he helped me a lot, especially in that second year. You talk about my second year. He was instrumental in my growth and seeing the maturation and say, hey, look, we got to count on you a little bit more now, big fella. You wet your beak. All right, come on, let's keep growing. And there was some confidence there from Jay Crott. I love JC. He was an ultimate competitor. Yeah.
My John Crotty story is, as you know, I played a lot of pickup ball, and I was relatively fast on the ball. And as we were making light of this earlier, you guys have come to the gym, your season's over. So, you just want to have a little fun, play some ball. It's not the end of the world. But John Crotty was the hardest guy for me to match up with because most of the players who play, they ain't taking that seriously. So they want to try to win the game and stay on the court. But it wasn't like that. John Crotty wouldn't give me anything. If I tried to drive, he would take a shoulder and knock me off my dribble. He was a tough competitor, even in pickup games. He wasn't giving anybody anything. Yeah.
Like I told you last night, and there's a lot of truth in jest. You can't turn off an ACC ball player.
Yeah,
a guy who's out there, and a ball player. Period. We have a motor. This is a standard of grind, and he probably saw you as a talented enough guy. If there's an opportunity to sharpen your iron, to work out against a guy who's got some talent, let me choose this guy today. All right. Today, I'm going to work on my left hand and I'm going to drive all left side pull-ups. And I'm going to try to beat this guy because he's talented enough to give me some pushback. Or I'm going to work on, I'm going to lock him up. He doesn't get anything.
Anything.
That could have been that day. That's just, we have to find that challenge every day as ball players. Like you said, we're out there getting some bump, getting some up and down, get a little cardio, playing the game, having a little fun. But there's a challenge somewhere that we mentally have to take. All right, this guy's not getting any offensive rebounds. Yeah. This guy, he gets nothing easy in the paint. He comes across the paint. I'm letting him have it. You talked about how you went up to the basket. You and I, and we didn't mind, jawing at a little bit of each other. It was all a part of the sport. It was fun. You score on me and let me know you a little too slow, Jeffries, whatever. I come back in, you ain't big enough, young fella. You know what I mean? Whatever the case may be. I'm not verbatim, but all right. If you want to be in this game, let me show you what it's all about. So you come in there, it's going to be physical. I'm not going to help you up. I'm not going to, be nice to you. We'll talk after the game, but that's it.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell the story then. So we're up there balling, and I'm trying to, whenever you guys will come, I always try to play my best. I want to make you guys know I belong. And so I went for a layup, and I had you beat. You're behind. You're coming back on a fast break.
Mm-hmm.
You caught up to me. You not only fouled me, you almost threw me out of the gym. And I was like, man, I said, Ted's my boy. So right. I remember that years later. And then we were on that Zoom call during the pandemic, one of those pandemic Zoom calls. And we were talking. I said, Ted, you remember that time you almost knocked me out of the gym? He said, yeah, I remember that time. He said, Julian, look, we're after trying to get our game on. And you had to always try to prove how good you were every moment of the game. I must just had enough that day. I just threw you out of the gym.
Right. Yeah. I'll tell you where that came from, Julian. So I talked about my influence with my cousin, Adrian Branch, right? So Adrian brings me up to University of Maryland. I'm up there for the weekend. I am eyes as big as saucers. I am seeing college in a whole different light. I've seen some of the most beautiful women that I've ever seen in my life. I've seen how my cousin was such a stud and well-loved at the university. I'm just on cloud nine about this experience of hanging out with my idol. So he brings me back to the dorm, and I'm sitting there talking to Herman Veal. Now, you remember Herman Veal, one of the strongest, most physical guys that I've seen in the ACC. I remember watching him growing up. I was like, that's Michael Graham light. You know what I mean? And if you get that terminology, you understand what I mean. Like Herman Veal, so he's sitting there and he's got a tumbler of vodka. He's just kind of swirling it in front of me, he's, swirling around with his fingers. He said, young fella, you're not going to be like your cousin. He leans in, said, your cousin's more finesse. He's a ball handler. You're going to be one of those guys, you're going to be a banger. You're going to be physical down low. You got to learn how to eat glass. And I'm looking at him like, how does he mean eat glass? He said, you know what I mean by that? And I said, tough rebound? He said, yeah, you got to learn how to be a monster on those boards. You got to be physical inside. That's not your cousin's game, but that's going to be your game. Still swirling, and I'm like, what in the hell is he, what is he talking about? Like, he said, I want you to take, when you get back home, take one of these glasses like this, wrap it up in a towel, get yourself a hammer. You smash that glass and you make yourself a glass sandwich. You learn how to eat glass. And I'm like, this dude is crazy. But I get the metaphor that he was saying. You got to learn how to be tough enough to physically eat glass. You got to go out there and, you got to be that brute sometimes. He said, you know how to waste a foul. And I said, no. He said, you're going to get in a situation where, coach doesn't want the guy to face cut you cutting through the lane. You got to hit him with that elbow, guard him out, ride him up the lane. Don't let him get post position, bury you inside. And every now and then somebody's going to hit you with a cheap shot. He said, your job is to not react right away because they always catch the person who reacts second. He said, sometimes you're going to have to eat that one. Eat that cheap shot to the head or cheap shot to the chin or bow in the gut. But when the referee's not looking and you got low foul count, that guy comes down there, he tries, he's not paying attention. You let him have it. He goes up for a layup. Don't get him where he gets a chance to even get the ball up. You try to break his wrist. You know what I mean? No and one situations. When you do that and you let him have it, and that's kind of a different scenario because there's been some separation. But it's very clear that one, he still knows that you're thinking about what he did to you. And now, two, he realizes this dude ain't no sucker and it ain't going to be an easy night. So learn how to waste the foul. If they catch you, all right, raise your hand. Yep, foul on me. Foul number 2. But you sent a message that it ain't going to be easy in here. And that little cheap stuff doesn't count. That you might have run into Ted Jeffries in that mode that day, Julian, when you came in the gym.
I never fouled you though.
I'm sure you gave me some fouls, or maybe stole the ball or whatever.
You're like, there's a fly in here. So did Jeff Jones, who played for Terry Holland, did he try to change things, or did he just try to continue in Jeff Jones's style?
definitely.
I mean, I'm sorry, Terry Holland style. Sorry about that.
Yeah, Terry Holland was, half court offense, it's kind of slow paced, but, tough, very physical defense. Jeff Jones from the onset, he said, I want to pick up the tempo. I want us to get out and run. And he said, I don't care who has the ball. We secure the rebound. If you can't get it to Corey or you can't get it to JC, push that ball out, get it to the two guard, get it to AO, let him bring it up. Let's put some pressure on the defense. So he wanted to have a little bit more of an up-tempo kind of approach to our, full court transition and not just walk the ball up. That was a big change. And then, he wanted to be a little bit more versatile with the offense as, I think we became Bryant Stith-centric in his second year as a coach. Because, he was our guy, he was our leader. And I don't think he trusted the first year guys enough to give them that responsibility. They were secondary players. We were going to play everything through Bryant Stith.
Right.
So yeah, the up-tempo pace, one of the things, and then more versatile in scoring were two of the things that I remember specifically.
Well, another one of your high points of your career was your junior year. You guys won the NIT. What is the NIT experience like? I mean, obviously, it's not where you necessarily want to be. You want to be in the big dance, but you win it. Is that a great moment? Is it a bittersweet moment? Like, see, they should have had us in the big dance. What is the feeling of winning the NIT?
Yeah, it's so funny because our team this year had an opportunity to kind of get back there and try to make lemonades out of a lemony kind of season. It starts off, it sucks. Let's just plain and simple. When you don't get that, you don't see your name pop up and that you're in a bubble, it's horrible. It's a horrible feeling. And you kind of just want to all right, well, that's the end of it. There was no CBI tournament. There was no, secondary tournament. It was just the NIT. And as we all know, a lot of people make fun of it, not in tournament, Yeah. But Jeff Jones brought us in and said, all right, guys, what do you want to do? Do you want to play or do you not want to play? And he prefaced, he said, I think we owe it to our seniors to play, but this will be your decision. And, this is Brian Stinton and Anthony Oliver that are our seniors. And we all looked around and we just kind of said, I don't know if it was Corey or Jason that said, I think it was Corey, said, well, look, if we're going to do this, let's go on and win the whole thing. And I don't know if you remember this, but our first game we played at Villanova and a sign of solidarity and commitment, like 6 of us shaved our heads.
I remember that.
Yeah, we all shaved our head bald to show our solidarity about our focus is we're going to send our guys out, on top. We're going to win this whole thing. And we played a very tough opening game on the road at Villanova, and ended up getting the W, obviously. But our commitment was like, if we're going to do this, let's go ahead and do it. And we know we were good enough to beat the teams that we had, that we ended up playing against. But along that road, we had a tough game at Villanova that we ended up winning. Our second game was in Richmond, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe in Richmond. We played against New Mexico, and they had this extremely gifted scoring guard out of Compton Community College. I can't remember his last name, but he can put up buckets like I have not seen in a long time. But we got the win there. Then we had Allen Houston in Tennessee come to Charlottesville. And we beat Allen Houston in that squad to go to, the Final Four in New York. Then we had Andrew DeClerc, a guy who came Florida, who played Florida, Stacy Poole, Andrew DeClerc, in that first round in the semis up in New York. And DeClerc came on a visit to UVA. I thought we were going to get him. He chose Florida, had a great career, got to the NBA. And then we ended up playing a overtime barn burner against Notre Dame, a team who we had, played home and home and won both of those games during the season. They're our non-conference opponent for maybe, we had 4 years, I think we played Notre Dame. At least 3 years at this point. Played them in the tournament, first round, our first year. I know we played a home and home with them our second and third year, and then we see them again in the tournament. So they, we hadn't lost to them. They were tired of losing to us, and they gave us a hell of a game. Elmer Bennett, I think he had like 41 in overtime. LaFonso Ellis had a great game, but that was our championship. And it felt great to get the win. But when you talk about the bittersweet moment, like we all got NIT rings. I don't know if anybody knows what an NIT ring is. We know the banner is there, but it's like, are you really gonna go around sporting? You got an NIT championship ring. It was a special moment. It's a moment in time. It's a sign of the accomplishment. But it was what I remember most about that run was the first part of what I talked about, our commitment to sending Bryant and Anthony out, the commitment to winning the whole thing from the onset, speaking it into existence. And then, there's a great picture of us after the game is over. I'm sitting on the floor. A lot of guys were just laughing. We're waiting for the trophy presentation and stuff like that. I remember that moment, you know what I mean? Just that special feeling that we did it. And, we sent our guys out and we accomplished something. And, it's bittersweet because at the end of the day, it was like, all right, we made the tournament. We won NIT. We made lemons out of lemonade. I mean, lemonade out of lemons. And let's get ready. But what it did most importantly is that next year, we had the longest undefeated winning streak in college basketball up into January because of the 5 games in NIT, carried on into the next season. We beat Duke at Duke. And then our next game was at Carolina. And, that was the second game of our Tobacco Road run. And things kind of came off the rails after that. Carolina, they beat us by 20 or 22 down there. Then we had Wake Forest at Wake Forest. So this is like a Thursday, Saturday, Sunday road trip, or Monday road trip down in Tobacco Road. But, that run catapulted us into the next season.
Yeah. Well, your senior season was a good season for you. You had great stats. I think you almost had a double-double in stats. I guess you need like a rebound and a half more. You would have been double-double. And once again, you got into the NCAA tournament again. And this time you end up going out against Cincinnati and Nick Van Exel. Do you remember that game?
I do. Yeah. Great season for me. I set out the season. I told a lot of the beat writers when we did press day in the beginning of the season that my goal was to average a double-double. I remember using Dale Davis as an example, that Dale Davis was able to do it. And I felt like I could do it too. So that was my goal. I came up a little bit short, but I was, only, like you said, a rebound and a half or a rebound away from doing it. But the Cincinnati game, man, very tough game. We're in the Meadowlands in New Jersey. You got Nick the Quick. You got Corey Blunt, who was he was a first round draft pick to the Chicago Bulls that year. Nick Van Exel, obviously, first round draft pick. They had Eric Martin, who was a very talented 4 and 3 guy. They had a mob, and they were totally unleashed, very athletic, tough-minded, just physical players. I remember early in the game, I knew it was going to be a long night, that I'm guarding Blunt. And I usually had the responsibility of guarding their best interior player. So Blunt gets a defensive rebound, passes the ball to Van Exel, and he takes off down the court like a gazelle. It looked like he got from free throw line to free throw line like Ty Lawson used to do for Carolina. Just cat quick. And they passed it back on the break, and he got a tip-in dunk. And I don't even know if I'm at half court at this point. I was just so amazed at how fast he was running. This is a 6'10" guy, 6'9", 6'10", wiry, strong, and runs like a damn gazelle. I was like, oh my God, this is gonna be a rough night for us tonight. And they got off to a hot start. We battled back, we fought, we had some, tough turnovers. They hit some big buckets. But that was a grind. I remember Jason Williford mouthing off with a guy who we knew before the game started was like a black belt in in martial arts. I mean, he was cut like a Greek god, just chiseled. And they were like, this is the guy you probably don't want to mess with. Sure enough, Jason Williford starts mouthing off with this cat. And he pulls me as the kind of the enforcer. You know, it's like, T, they talking trash over here, T. And I'm looking at myself, I said, man, do you not know who that is? But, you know, I'm going to ride with my guy. So Eric Martin and I are beefing at each other a little bit, going back and forth. And then Jason will tell you, the cat, his name was Bostic. Last name was Bostic. Mm. He told him very simply, he said, you don't want any of this, young fella.
And he said it like he meant it and he knew
it. Exactly like that. Exactly. You don't want any of this. And Jay quickly, I had to pull him aside and say, Jay, I know I'm with you, but that's the dude that is a 12-degree black belt. It's not happening, bro. If you go down that road, you by yourself. I'll get anybody else tries to jump in. I'm not messing with that cat. Man. So yeah, that was a hell of a game. It was you know, the realization that that's my last game.
Yeah.
You know, I thought we were going to be on a magical run. I was actually mentally, you know, saying that we could beat Cincinnati because I mean we're an ACC team. I thought we were strong enough, good enough to compete with anybody. We didn't have to bow down to anybody. If you remember that run, our last year, our first game was against Manhattan. We're in Syracuse. Mm-hmm. Played Manhattan on the road. We're in the tournament, and then we get what's the school up in where Canby played? UMass.
Yeah.
Canby's not there yet, but they got Lou Rowe and Harper Williams, the big inside presence.
They were top 10. They were top 10 that year.
And they were the pick. You know, people were predicting them over us. And I'm like, wait a minute. I felt slighted going into I was like, wait a minute. We're still UVA. We're still the team that had we had a little bump in the middle of the season, but remember us? We started out, swept Duke this year. Duke is a very talented team. So, we had a little bit of a chip on our shoulder. And I promise you, I remember in that game, I remember saying to myself, I said, we're playing the best game we played all season during that game. And, that was the game I actually got CBS Player of the Game for that game, like 15 and 11. And we got the win. And I remember saying something about that. They were like, did you guys feel intimidated, against the inside presence of UMass? I was like, oh, man, we're an ACC team. I didn't say it as, as snark as I'm saying it now, but the message was, like, we're not afraid of, other guys. That they might have been picked over us and, picked for the upset, but don't forget, we're still Virginia, and then Cincinnati let us know something different, the next game.
Yeah.
But, hell of a tournament run, hell of a career. It was a numb feeling when it was all over. And I kind of wanted to see Carolina again because that's who we would have played. They were actually, as we were coming off the court, they were in the tunnel coming out. Dean stepped off and shook my hand, said, congratulations on a great career. I don't know what I said. Thanks, coach, but I really wasn't trying to hear that right then, especially for him, because I wanted to see them again.
That was the team that won. That was the team that won the title.
That's
right?
the '93 team that won the title.
Yeah.
Beat us in the. That's the ACC tournament when the lights went out.
That's right. Yeah.
And we were playing Carolina at the time. And we had them on the ropes. We were up 6, maybe 8, and this is a game they call it the second halftime, because we had just come out in the second half. We were like 4 minutes into the game. Lights go out. People always talk about Dean. Dean pulled the plug. But yeah, man, hell of a game against Cincinnati.
Yeah. Well, Ted, this has been great, man. You're a great storyteller. I wanted to get just end on your post UVA career. Now, you've done a lot of fun things. You traveled the world. You played pro over in Europe. You went to Germany, Poland, Latvia. You saw Eastern Europe. is a great time for a pro athlete. I'm sure there's some adjustments too, but you got some coaching. You've done some media work for UVA. You've done a whole lot of fundraising. I think you're with the United Negro College Fund now, right?
Correct.
You did some for UVA. You've done some fun. And just kind of wrap us up and kind of tell us about your post UVA journey.
Yeah, I mean, I think the natural transition for me was to get into coaching. Part of me wanted to kind of impart on others what had been given to me by a bunch of great coaches. You know, we went through them: Morgan Wootten, Fletcher Arritt, Jeff Jones, Terry Holland. You know, I've been fortunate around, you know, some of the AAU guys. So to be able to try to teach some other kids, to get them better, you know, I thought that was a natural transition for me. I got a little disgruntled with the, you know, the coaching system and how things worked, and probably had unrealistic expectations. But I always felt like I wanted to be in control of my own destiny and where I was going to be, what direction I wanted to head in. So, you know, I got out of coaching, got into fundraising, and I've never really looked back. Stayed around, closely wrapped close to the game. The broadcasting definitely helps. I miss the coaching camaraderie. I miss the teaching of the game. I miss being on the road, recruiting. But I don't miss having to deal with parents and, you know, and all that other stuff. But it's been a fun ride for me, Julian. You know, I still stay very deeply rooted in watching college basketball. This is my season right now from March Madness on through the NBA Finals. I am totally locked in. Yeah. But being able to help others with regard to what I've done in fundraising and providing scholarship opportunities for Black and brown students has been one of the more meaningful things that I've done. So it's, you know, it is, it's been kind of fulfilling for my soul to kind of say that I've been able to help some people along the way. Yeah.
Well, you've done a great job, and it's an awesome profession, and we're lucky guys like you are doing it. Well, look, TJ, this has been awesome. Like I said, you're a gifted storyteller. I could go on all day, but I think this was just a lot of fun. Maybe we can do another one of these with some of your teammates. We didn't talk about Corey Alexander, and I mean, when your career, we have so many connections because we're both from the DC area. We have UVA. We didn't talk about the BBS. We so many other things we could have gone through today. But you know, it was great talking to you. I'm glad you decided to do this.
I appreciate it. If we could ever get Junior Burroughs on here, I'm sure it won't be hard to get him on. He doesn't mind. He's probably more long-winded than I am.
I know, you're great.
But yeah, we can try to put something together, get those guys together to talk about maybe that last year, whatever. I'm sure we can hook that up.
Yeah, I forgot about Junior Burroughs too. Because you had the early days with John Crotty, Stith, and Kenny, but then you had the junior came and Corey came. So you had two different shifts.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, Ted, again, man, look, thanks for all your time, and I hope you have a great day, man.
Julian, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it. You too.
Okay, buddy.
Take care.
All right, man.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.